Welcome back, everyone, to Talking Point. I'm Mayor Mike, and with me in this episode is our newest Parks Director and Stevens Point resident, Director Dan Kremer. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
So you come to us from a distant land far south of here. Tell us about your background and your connection to the area.
Sure. So most recently, I was working for the city of Portage. So that's where I've been for about 6 years. So just south down the interstate. But I'm originally I grew up in the township of Millador, so south of Blanker. And I went to...
That's an Auburndale suburb, isn't it?
It is, yep. I went to Auburndale High School. So I used to come to Point all the time and spend a lot of time here in the park system and come to Riverfront Rendezvous and a lot of shopping and things too in the area. So, and then pass through here a lot coming from Portage, obviously coming home to visit family and things too. So before Portage, I worked for the village of Ashwaubenon in the shadows of Lambeau Field is what I always say. So yeah, but I'm very excited to be here.
So you were Parks Director down in Portage. What is Portage like?
Sure. So Portage is along the river as well. So there's some similarities in terms of what you run into with being next to the water. We had a couple parks that were on the water, but not nearly to the scale of what we do here. So that part is a little different, but very familiar with what we did or similar to what we did in that nature. But we had 19 parks in Portage. There was 15 of them developed. In addition, we had some land that was conservancy type land that we took care of too, and trails. A lot of very similar recreational attractions. Okay. There was a swim beach there, so we had an outdoor area that we lifeguarded and took care of. Silver Lake is what it was called. In addition to a splash pad in town, we had an indoor community pool and very, very similar recreational amenities. It seems like every community tries to put those things in to keep it as a good place to live. But if you compare the two communities, they really aren't comparable. Stevens Point is the best park system in the whole state. I really believe that. So very fortunate to be here now.
Good answer. Good answer. No, and you mentioned the splash pad. That's something that we've been working on here for a while already, and we'll probably talk more about that later in the show. But give us an idea of what prompted you to choose Stevens Point to apply?
Sure. So I had known Tom Schrader through our association, Wisconsin Park and Rec Association, so I'd interacted with him a little bit. And, even when I came and visited, when I got into this field, I always thought, I'd be closer. I have a pretty big family in the area. I was very envious of the park system here in the community and all the attractions and location. So I just thought if there was ever an opportunity, I'd like to give it a shot. And when it opened, the timing was right, and that's really what caused me to apply. I wanted to be in this area. This has always been really kind of my dream or my goal in terms of my career. So I was able to go and get some great experiences in a couple other communities. But really, this was hopefully my plan a long time ago already. So
Good. Well, and we're very happy to have you. I think things have been going very well since you started. And you started right at the end of June, just a few days before Riverfront Rendezvous, arguably our biggest event of the entire year, right down at Piffner Pioneer Park. Now, I know after Director Schrader left, he had everything kind of set up, and the staff here really stepped up and kind of took control of those things to make it a very smooth transition. Those people attending Riverfront Rendezvous probably had no idea the chaos that had been going on a little bit behind the scenes with all the things that Director Schrader used to do, and now other people were doing them. But you came on just a few days before that event, and I know you were there all weekend, working with staff, putting in countless hours, because every time I was there, you were there, so you had to be there more than me. Give us an impression of your first couple of days. What did you think? What did you do?
Sure. So it was kind of a goal of mine to make sure I made it before Riverfront, because I wanted to be around it. And I'd attended it as a spectator, and it's a whole different animal, as you know, when you're behind some of the scenes and what's going on with the actual operations of the event. So that was a goal to get here right before, with the way the timing fell out. It was busy. I will give a lot of credit to to the staff, to Tom, that he had done before he left, as well as yourself, you being involved with all the planning that went on. There was a lot going on. So you try to get a lot of contractors and vendors and things in, and they're really familiar with how it always had run, and now you've got some new faces and new people doing those kind of things. That actually went pretty smoothly, but Mother Nature threw us a curveball on Thursday, the first day of the event. We had some lightning and thunder and things that played a role. So it was busy, but it was probably a good busy. It gave me a lot of opportunity to shake hands and get to know people, work with the staff directly, and that part really seemed to work out well, and I enjoyed that part. And then we had really good weather on Friday and Saturday, which was also a very big benefit or help for the event itself. And hopefully, the fireworks show is the best I've heard it ever been. And people really seem to have good comments about that. So overall, great event. What an asset and great thing that the community puts on. And again, I think it was great to be here and be involved with it. And now next year, as I'm planning for that, working with the staff, I've had really a hands-on effort with it and should be able to evaluate things and and make some of those changes that we may have talked about and know what we did versus just trying to read the paper. It's hard to see what happened on paperwork. And again, Tom had a lot of things set up, but it's hard to, if you don't shake those hands and make those connections and build those relationships yourself, it's kind of difficult to execute those plans all the way, yourself as well.
Right. Well, and you're going to be doing that for quite a while. Tom being here for almost 37 years, had a lot of connections, and you've met a lot of people already, but there are so many wonderful people that help with our park system. Without them, we wouldn't have half of the accolades that we do. We just signed some more papers for the sculpture park. Mm-hmm. Two of the artists are actually donating their artwork, so that was really cool to see. Going back to Riverfront Rendezvous, though, we try and make things better every single year, right? And we'll get the generic complaints of you need better bands, but when it comes time to making suggestions, either they are way out of our price range. They want the headliners that are filling stadiums right now. We can't get the Who. We probably can't get the Rolling Stones. I'll check maybe Bon Jovi's not busy on 4th of July one year. So we try and have a diverse group of artists playing music, right? Not everybody likes country or rock and roll or oldies or polkas, but we do try and diversify that a little bit. The same with the food vendors. We don't have 15 hot dog vendors. Mm-hmm. We kind of split that up so you have more choices as an attendee. Some of the things that we've done new this year, working with the Downtown Business Association, Cultural Commons, and Prime Water Anglers, a local fishing club, as well as the city, of course, we instituted and installed our first pier down by the Riverfront Art Center. And it's a small docking area, not meant for long-term storage, but if you want to come down the river, stop off and visit the park either during Riverfront or any of our Levitt Series music nights or any of the festivals that are going on or City Band on Wednesday. Of course, that's done now. Mm-hmm. Or you just maybe want to take a stroll downtown, grab a bite to eat or do a little shopping. You can do that by parking at that new dock. I know that people used it this year for Riverfront, which was really cool to see. And I think that's going to be a nice addition to the area. Now, I know that you have attended as a spectator, and now you've attended as director. Can you give us any insight into some things that you think we might be able to do better next year?
Sure. So I think one of the things that comes up always is talk about the band. So why do we select one band or the other? And we do have some tremendous partners that work on that process with the city of Stevens Point to select those things. So we'll review ultimately what the past practice has been and what's on the main stage versus the north tent and also in the Piffner building. There is a lot of data. The good news about having this event be so long is those organizers and partners have worked with us and kept a lot of data on why they selected one band or the other. So those will be some of the things that we evaluate and talk about for next year. One thing that got brought up was some of the gaps we had. So we had the new Lumberjack show this year.
That was pretty successful.
Yeah, very, very well attended. People really liked it, but we did have some conflicts with the main stage going at the same time. So people were having to kind of choose between, do I watch the main stage band or do I go over to the Lumberjack show? And the two loud noises at one time kind of conflicted. So we've already spoken, and if we bring them back, and we'd like to, we're going to trying to stagger that entertainment so that you can watch the band, then go get something to eat potentially, walk over to the Lumberjack show and go back and forth. Other things that have come up in terms of is how many acts are on the main stage. Mm-hmm. So why there's a gap maybe between when the main stage ends and it's 2 more hours before the north tent kicks off. So those will be a couple of the things that we evaluate. Additional things that have come up is even carry-ins is always a hot topic. Those are things that we talk about, and all of the proceeds from our festival do support the festival, and that's what pays for the bands. So we've got some unique ideas that we may investigate or talk about in terms of just some signage, educational signage, saying to let spectators know that those beer sales and food sales and all the things that we do for sponsorship sponsor the event and make that event possible. So a couple of those things kind of factor in. We've also talked about reinvigorating and kind of recreating the child area, the Children's Day, the Kids' Day. The way it's been set up has kind of been a routine and it's been a strong tradition and it's been working well. However, we believe there may be some new trends in the market that we can get into.
Good.
And offer for the kids' age, because it's always great to see all the families that come down and the smiles on their faces during the day.
Good. Yeah, no, and I like to see things, kind of keep moving. I know everybody, there's a group of people that look forward to the Carp Classic every year. Yeah. Or trivia in the Piffner building. Those events, I think, are very successful. And if there was a way that we could kind of schedule the events a little bit better so people are able to do the things they want without conflicting with other things that are going on. Of course, there is so much going on at Piffner Park during Riverfront Rendezvous. It's hard to figure out which one you want to do. Mm-hmm. But I think if we close those gaps, carry-ins, of course, is always a big one. This is a local event sponsored municipally, but with the help of some really dedicated sponsors. And it wouldn't be possible if it weren't for those sponsors. I understand the numbers. I haven't seen the final numbers yet, but I think we're in the black this year, yep. Which is unusual for the event. So I'm glad to see that that's moving along. And part of that is with the people who attend. They need to understand that, someone's still footing the bill. We have a budget for bands, and if you want better bands, we need to be able to pay those bands what they're asking. And without those sales and getting some benefit from the revenue, we don't have any additional money. So if people limit the amount of carry-ins that they bring in and purchase their beverages, their food from those local vendors, that helps support the city, and in turn we can reinvest that money into making the event even better. So hopefully people understand that going forward, and we'll put out reminders if we have to, just to remind people to try and support those local vendors if we can. Exactly right.
And our big goal is we want to keep this a free family festival, and that's another added benefit. We don't charge a cover charge, and we don't want to ever go down that route right now. We've really seen the benefit of people being able to just come out with their lawn chair and enjoy the day. So that definitely plays a role when we talk about the big sponsors we have, the local businesses that are so supportive, and these vendors. We're really all working together to try to make sure, and that does come back to that kind of carry-in item, that we want to support the festival, we want to support our partners, and we want to make it free for people to come and enjoy. So.
Right. Well, and that's one thing I want to touch on too. If people outside the city hall, kind of the administration, have ideas and ways we can make this event better, more family friendly, and bigger, better, faster, right? If they want to do that and they have a suggestion, they can contact the Parks Department's office or the mayor's office, where we see each other every day, so we'll share that information, and together we can come up with some ideas that'll make next year even better than this past year.
Absolutely. And me being my first year coming into the planning process from the beginning, I welcome those comments and suggestions. It's a really good time, and we've talked as a staff already, it's a good time to kind of review some of the things that we've been doing, and then talk about some of these new things. Because again, me being brand new, it kind of brings a different perspective now. And Tom did such great things with this event. Really, they've grown it, and working with Rick and Greg, and there's so many names and community partners that were involved. And now I'm just fortunate to be a part of it. So yeah, I welcome those comments. They can contact the Parks office or touch base with you, and we'll put those comments together, and we evaluate everything that comes in.
Great. Well, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry is a lot bigger than Riverfront Rendezvous. You've been here just over a month now. Mm-hmm. Give me an idea of some of the impressions you have of some of our other facilities.
We really are fortunate in Stevens Point. So right now we're just doing a big project at the Willett Arena. So that's something in 2019. We're redoing the complete chiller system for the flooring to actually put the ice in. So that's a unique facility for our community. And so that's a big challenge that we're just getting together, and we're getting close to ice making time. So that's exciting.
And I want to stop on that because most people probably don't understand. So under the floor, there are cooling coils. Those cooling coils were originally installed when the building was constructed. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you that I was around, but I don't think many other people were around when we got rid of the old Isodrome and created this new KB Willett Arena.
Sure.
So every year prior to this year, we've had leaks in that system. So we'd have to tear up a chunk of concrete, replace some of the pipes, and then re-pour the concrete and start all over again. What this is going to do is it's a complete remodel. So we won't have to worry about that and causing all of those disruptions, which will allow us now to have more events, not only during the winter and hockey seasons, but during the summer. I mean, that's a pretty open arena. We could have trade shows in there if we weren't under construction. So this is going to help us do that, and we can even have some summer events in there to help with the revenue. Plus a whole remodel of the press box. We're looking at some other ideas there, just making the Willett a better place to attend an event.
Exactly. There's so many people that go to the Willett already, and we were spending a lot of money, upwards $50,000-$60,000 a year on repairs to the former system and the floor. We weren't able to do summer ice because of some of those things. So this repair, we look at having ice longer in the season, as well as those events you talked about in the summer. And it was long overdue in terms of the system that we had. So that's been a major undertaking that the staff has been doing a great job with and working with contractors. But that was something that's going on right as I came in the door as well, kind of getting up to speed. We're also in the middle of the hot season, so our pool has been up and running, and getting to observe that. We have a great attraction there too, right here in Gerke Park, right outside our office. So many people come, again, families, kids, all ages in our pool. So that's been a nice operation to observe. And again, the staff has done a great job with some challenges there too, with a system that's getting a little bit older, but we do have on the docket for a replacement on the filtration system for our main pool. But in addition to that, we have a lot of property we maintain. So our Parks Department, our Forestry Department, they really do a fantastic job when you go out and look at how well things are groomed, especially on a year like this year when it's this wet. It's difficult to get in a lot of those places. And like anything, you always would like to have more staff when you have that opportunity, but our staff does a great job with the numbers we have. We also had the storm that came through here a couple of weeks ago, and I can't give our crew enough kudos for the work that they put in. Some of them on overtime, some of them coming in when they weren't planning to work to get our streets cleared. Really great collaboration between the Streets Department, the Parks Department, the Forestry Department. A group of individuals coming together collectively to get things done well. So it's been a busy first month and a half, but really from my observations at this point, I've been really impressed with our operations. We've got some great people in great places, some great leaders involved with them. And it seems like all of the staff really cares. And that's really our biggest thing, is making sure that the product we're putting out there for the community to enjoy, it doesn't just happen. There's a lot of boots on the ground getting those things done.
That is true. And I talk about that all the time. The amount of people that step up and get the job done in this community is phenomenal. And we can't say enough about it. Let's go back to the storm, though. This last storm we had a couple of weeks ago wasn't anything compared to the June of 2017 storm. That was pretty harsh. But we did have some damage. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. But tell me a little bit about how the parks were affected. We think we had 80-some trees in the parks down. There was some structures that took a hit. Let me know what happened.
Sure. So we have a tally. We're just starting to kind of put together the final numbers of what we had. We ended up with just over 20 street trees that had actually tipped over in the storm, which are the trees between the boulevard and the curb, or the sidewalk and the curb is what I should say. And then also we had just over 30 trees in the park system itself. Now that's just actual trees. In addition to that, a lot of debris, a lot of brush, branches, things of that nature that fell. So ultimately the first thing that we go through is clearing the streets to make sure that emergency vehicles and things can get through. And then really the forestry staff goes in, the park staff helps them with all of that brush cleanup, removal. Luckily, in terms of the park system, the only structural damage we had was on a gazebo down along the river. But other than that, none of our buildings were affected, which we were really fortunate for. In other areas not too far from Stevens Point, there was much more damage there. But still a lot of brush and debris and tree cleanup that we have to do, and will be doing even for the next several months to try and get it all done.
And talking about the trees, because forestry obviously is under your purview as well. We're a Tree City USA, and we're very proud of that. Over 35 years we've been doing this. Something that came up recently was our inoculation of the ash trees regarding the emerald ash borer. And I just want to take this opportunity, I know you're aware of it, but I want to take this opportunity to say that 99% of the trees that we are inoculating are direct injection. We're not spraying an insecticide, because we're very conscious about the fact that those spray insecticides can have an effect on other insects, including honeybees, which are very important at this point. I mean, they've always been, but we've been made more aware of the chemicals that are decimating the honeybee population. And we've recently enacted an ordinance allowing city residents to have their own hives within certain guidelines, of course. So we want to make sure that we are trying to be as conscious of that as we can, and those trees that are being inoculated have minimal effect on other insects. Now there is that 1% that we're doing a root injection that may have some effect on some of the subsurface insects and wildlife, but for the most part, we've got everything under control there too, right?
Yes, and Todd and Paul and Jonathan and our whole forestry division, they really do a good job, and they're really great resources too. So I'd encourage people, if there is questions on particulars, or if they're interested in some sort of, if they want a safety data sheet or something of that nature, contact our office. Todd's great with those. He'll take those calls. They're very good at getting back to people, even with the busy operations going on with the storm removal. So yes, we're very conscious of those things, and we try to educate as much as we can. So we do encourage those questions and comments, and we'll try to get people as much information as they'd like. And sometimes questions come up about, I see you doing this on the boulevard tree, but I've got a similar tree in my backyard. What can I do? And we try to give as much information and point people in the right direction for those kind of things as well.
Yeah, that's actually important to note because I've had more than one person ask about trees on private property. And while the city doesn't maintain those trees, you can call the city forester's office and he would be happy to come out and look at it, let you know if there's any danger that he perceives in his professional opinion, or if it's diseased or somehow affected. He could tell you what blight it might have, or whether it's even worth worrying about. Sometimes I had a maple tree once and I had Todd come over and take a look at it because there was some growth on the back of, well, it's my mother's maple tree. And he said, no, that's normal. It just happens sometimes. We don't know why. But that city forester is available as a resource to all the citizens of Stevens Point.
Absolutely, and tremendous resource. They're very knowledgeable. Todd's knows so much about it. So yeah, while we can't physically spend any money and do things in the backyards and on private property, we can be a great resource for that education component and things that we're doing with similar trees or similar things that we're seeing on the public property. So yes, those folks we're here for them. So if they can give us a call, we can definitely help them out.
Great, great. So I promised I would get back to that splash pad idea, which is kind of a good segue into the last little bit I want to talk about. But Portage has a splash pad. A lot of communities around the area have a splash pad. The closest we have right now is the fountain on the square, and I wouldn't call that even remotely a splash pad. But we have been working on it, and started even before you got here, about adding an additional area to the municipal pool to install a splash pad. Now, they're not cheap, and the city doesn't have a whole lot of money to do capital projects like that, but we're looking at a splash pad in that area. We've got some commitment from a few donors, but we need about $500,000. So if anybody out there watching or listening has a big checkbook, by all means, give me a call. We'd love to have that donation and help make our splash pad a reality. But it is going to be moving forward, and we'll roll it into the capital budget. But it's going to be several years out before we're able to see any progress from a capital standpoint. We're going to try and get that money through donations. Being here now over a month, you've had an opportunity to visit most of the parks, and some of them are very large, of course, Piffner, Buchelt, Iverson, and have a lot of history. Where do you see us going in the next 10 to 15 years? And of course, Emerson is in there as well, the newest park in the city that we haven't even got a master plan on. Talk about where you see the city going in relation to those parks.
Sure. So, the park and recreation world is very, there's trends that come and go just like a lot of other things. And we're very fortunate here because we've done a good job, or the city's done a good job, maintaining that natural, beauty of all of our park systems while still enrolling and putting in some of these things like playgrounds and some of our park attractions that we have. I think you just mentioned Emerson Park is going to be a big trend, I think, that we're coming into, because there's going to be some developments that happen there. And by developments, I mean things like there's a friends group, and they're talking about improvements to that small baseball field that's there, upgrading the playground equipment to be into current standards and up to the current trends, and safety protocols that go with playgrounds, maybe putting in something to, like some shade areas like a gazebo or something along those lines, and some access paths for people to get in there to be able to access the park as well. So that's going to be something big that's coming down. We've mentioned the splash pad is something that's kind of on the radar. In addition to that, though, there will be a number of playgrounds that do get updated over the next number of years. A lot of our playgrounds were put in the early 90s, and once they start to get to that lifestyle, I should say life range of around that 30-year mark, you almost can't buy parts for them anymore. So we've done a good job trying to phase those things in over the next several years in our capital budget to improve. And there's always things that come up in terms of, as new trends come out. Pickleball is a big trend right now, and I know the city's been able to put those into here in Gerke Park and other locations. So we've got things that we need to maintain, but as well as we'll always be keeping our eyes out for some of those new trends. And again, we're so fortunate to have things like the Green Circle Trail, and our parks are interconnected with a lot of the things that we do. So be trying to build on that, what we've done already, and see what some of the newer areas are in the park system, and then improve some of these structures that are maybe dating out a little bit or getting to the end of their useful life cycle.
Yeah, and that usually comes into play is, the outdated equipment. I know Emerson still has the old school playground equipment on there. It's built solid, but it's starting to become a problem. One of the cool things that I think is important to note is over at Kosciuszko Park, we're putting in pollinator gardens.
Yeah.
It's a big natural area, and we're looking at putting in some pollinator gardens there with the help of some community support. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we are really fortunate in Stevens Point to have these user groups and these volunteer groups that work with things. And in Kosciuszko Park, what we have is we have a transmission line that goes through the edge of it and then into the Erickson Natural Electrical transmission line, correct. American Transmission Company is who oversees that. And we're currently working with them on some of their management plans that they need to do to maintain those lines. And within that, we've had the ability to work with the Audubon Society to do these pollinator areas. So in spots where we have to remove some of these invasive species that are growing up into the line, we're working on a partnership that'll go before the Park and Recreation Commission in September. That'll show some of this management plan and what they're going to do for removal of some of these invasives, as well as some trimming and things that'll go in that. And then this improved habitat that we're going to try to put in following it. And we hope to work with the Audubon Society, our parks employees, obviously our department, as well as any volunteers and the American Transmission Company to pull that off. And it's likely that we're going to have some sort of formalized easement that we'll be working on for that meeting as well. And then we look to seek to apply for some grants that are going to help fund some of these things too as we look forward. So it's an area that we've maintained, but it's been more of it's not been formalized in an easement agreement. And we're going to take care of some of that legal items with it, as well as try to improve the habitat and for the long-term future of the park as well.
Great. And I love it. I can't say this enough when the community gets involved. I know you have had an opportunity to make contact with a lot of those community partners, and you will be making more contacts in the months to come. So I appreciate everything you've done and how you've settled in very nicely. I've already gotten several compliments about working with you, so that is a testament that we chose the right guy. So we're looking for several years of service here, and I know that under your guidance, the park system will only continue to get better. If people have suggestions, as always, they can contact your office. What's the primary number here?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can call me directly if you like. Our number to the front office is 715-346-1531. Otherwise, my contact number, the last just changed, it's 715-346-1536. My email address is also listed at our website if you go and visit. You can review documents like our comprehensive outdoor rec plan, which goes through a lot of things and a lot of the plans that are for our park system, and we're always looking for feedback. So I look forward to meeting these community partners, any that I haven't already. Again, feel fortunate to be here and look forward to being a resident of the city of Stevens Point and actively involved in a lot of things, park and recreation related, as well as in the community itself for a long time.
And there's no doubt about that, because my wife and I attend a lot of events and we see you at every one of them. So if anyone's interested in meeting Dan, go find his picture on the website and track him down at the riverfront area when there's an event going on, or any of the other cool things that are going on in the city, and let him know how you feel. Say hi and welcome Dan to our community. Dan, I want to thank you for joining us on Talking Point. It's been a pleasure, and as I said, I'm looking forward to many years of continued dedicated service. Until next time, I'm Mayor Mike, and we have been Talking Point.